This is episode 60, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about why you should become an extraordinary wife. Now, obviously, this is an episode directed at the wife, so husband, you might want to listen because you'll be able to help your wife become that extraordinary wife, and when she does, trust me, everybody will benefit as a result of this. Now, the late Zig Ziglar had a saying that before you can have, you need to be. He would strongly emphasize the need to become something or someone to be able to have the things that you want to have. His philosophy was that so many people want to have, but they fail to become the person that aligns with what they want to have. And so in this episode, we're going to talk about be before you can have. And hence the idea of becoming the extraordinary wife is what this episode is about. So stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to the Happier Marriage Podcast, a podcast for spouses longing to have a happier marriage so they can feel more connected, desired and supported. Now, to start the show, here is your host and Sherpa, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified relationship coach, Kingsley Grant.
Now, before we dive into this topic, I want to let you know that what you will be hearing is a recording I did for my YouTube channel. So you'll hear me mention this phrase in this video. Okay, so when you hear that, just overlook and remember it's from a recording I did for my YouTube channel. Now, if you haven't checked out that channel as yet, you may want to do so. And when you do, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to see what I talk about there, which are some topics that I don't talk about here. And I also lay that out in a very strategic way. And with, the slides, you'll see, you got to go check it out. You've got to go check it out to see what I'm talking about. Now, because I know that I would be making this recording into a podcast, I did mention about that. So you'll hear in that video me making reference to this podcast here. I think this was one of the episodes I felt very passionate about, and you'll hear more like this in the future. And now one of the reasons is that I want to take a few episodes and fully explain one of the shifts that is taking place on this podcast. Now, after many years of doing counseling and coaching, I've come to realize the importance of helping wives become the change agent in their marriage. I believe for more reasons than one that you as a wife can create the type of marriage you want. And you'll hear why right after this.
So, the big question is this. How is it possible that you have a happier marriage when you feel like you've tried everything? Your spouse isn't making an effort. You're exhausted. You feel like giving up. Or there's so much hurt that's taken place between you and your spouse. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers.
Okay, without further ado, let us dive in. And remember, this is the audio from the video recording that I did for my YouTube channel at Kingsley Grant. So I want to mention that, and here we get into today's recording. Hi, Kingsley here. In this video, I'm going to talk about why you should become an extraordinary wife. For those listening to the Happier Marriage Secrets podcast, this is episode 60. Now, as I begin to talk about why you should become an extraordinary wife, I know that some wives, and hopefully not you, but you might be one of those, that might be thinking and that you don't have the energy or the time for what it is an extraordinary wife requirements might be. You might be hearing more work and you're wondering, how much more can I do? I've done so much, right? Others might be wondering or even protesting the idea of the focus being on her and not her husband. And I get all that. But I promise you that when you become that extraordinary wife, according to what the Bible outlines, you'll be better off for it, and your marriage will be also, I believe that 100%. Now, when I use the word extraordinary, I'm not talking about being perfect. I'm not suggesting that you are to be burdened with the relationship and your husband do nothing. I hope you're not hearing that, and please do not run away and thinking that is what I am implying by what it is I'm talking about in this video or this episode as you listen to the podcast. Now, quite the contrary, as you'll see in a few moments. I do believe that God has called you to be your husband's helpmeet, according to Genesis. And when you do all you can to fulfill that call, you will be that extraordinary wife. That's the wife that I believe experience a marriage where she feels the most secure, the most happiest, most fulfilled that any other relationship can be. Now, I do know that there are those who will protest this idea right away and will try to tell you otherwise. I understand. I know it because I see it when I do my posts on social media sometimes. I hear it right away. And, I'm not in a judgment mode, but I wonder, where are some of these women or wives who are commenting on what my posts? I wonder where they're coming from. What are their background? And I'm not here to judge. I really appreciate the fact that they're actually engaged. And I really applaud that. I really open the conversation, and I want to have that feedback because, I can learn some things as well. So, but I know sometimes there are some who are going to protest the idea because they just immediately hear what they want to hear. But I hope you are not one of those who do that. Remember, not all wives want to be this way. Not all wives want to be this way. Secondly, there are some who have men hurt, okay? And they have walls. They have built walls to protect themselves, which I can understand. But it is where sometimes they're speaking from, because when they're hurt, they're seeking to hurt in their comments, seeking to hurt others, want others to, I remember hearing this, that, misery loves company. Misery loves company. And so some people who are miserable in their marriage or in their lives want you to be miserable as well. Please don't join them. Don't make sure you have that discernment where you don't get sucked into a misery kind of issue that's taking place. Now, here I'm nasally because I'm kind of battling this cold, so I apologize if you hear this nasally kind of voice. So, but anyway, it's still sexy, right? Now, and there are those who are in rebellion, outright rebellion to the Word of God, and they do not want to submit themselves to His teaching because it goes contrary to the narratives of the day and the ideology that has permeated so many marriages. So many marriages have drifted away from what God intended and made marriage to be everything else but, and you wonder why the consequences are what they're experiencing. But let me just say this. God created marriage and has written the manual for how you and I, as married individuals, should be. And when we do our best to follow His teachings, we're going to be better off. God will bless us because we are doing our best to follow His teaching. And I hope that's what your heart is yearning for as you listen to this episode or watch this video. Now, I want to give you 3 reasons why I believe that you should become an extraordinary wife. Now, there are many reasons you should that are in existence, right? You hear me talk about different reasons from time to time, but I want to share with you in this video 3 reasons, 3 I believe are the strongest reasons why you want to become an extraordinary wife. Number 1, it will make your husband happier. So, Kingsley, what about me? Well, I want you to suspend this thought about what about me while you listen to this. Suspend that thought and just be open. Just be neutral to what I'm saying without any biased thinking or leaning to in one way or the other. Just be open and let God's Spirit speak to your heart. So and not trying to figure out what about me. And I get it. I can understand that from a human standpoint, but it will make your husband happier. And when you're an extraordinary wife and your husband feels loved and respected and appreciated and supported, he's going to do everything he can to fulfill what God has called him to do. That is to protect and provide a secure and safe environment for you. Isn't that what you want? This is one of those ways, my dear wife, that you're going to be able to experience that. When he feels that way, he's going to move everything possible, mountains if he has to make sure you receive what it is you want in your marriage. Number 2, it will make your marriage stronger. A strong marriage is built on a foundation, as you know, of love, respect, and communication. So when you're an extraordinary wife, you are going to be the impetus. You are going to be the catalyst. You will be able to create a strong foundation for your marriage. Yes, you have it within you to be able to do that. And I'm trying to tap into something that you may not realize that you have been equipped to do. God has equipped you. When he said, I want you to be a helpmeet for your husband, he placed in you everything you need to truly pull this off. He does. And he wants to show that and manifest that in your life. And that's why it'll create a stronger marriage. And number 3, it will make you a better person. So when you strive to be an extraordinary wife, you become a better person. You become more confident, more compassionate, more loving. And why wouldn't you be that way when your relationship is more stable and secure and safe? Why wouldn't you feel more confident and show up that way among your peers? And so when you go around your other friends, they will be able to tell that you are experiencing a happier marriage. Isn't that what you want? So how do you become that extraordinary wife? Now, before I share that with you, let me ask you to hit that subscribe button. It is one of those ways that this channel will have a broader reach when YouTube sees a number of subscription climbing. So I want you to hit that subscription button. And if you're liking what you're hearing so far, just hit that like button. And if you want to be notified of whenever a new video goes up, then you'll also want to hit that notification bell. Now, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you may want to come and watch this video and do the very same thing I'm suggesting here. Okay. Now, for you who are watching this, I want to mention that you heard me mention a podcast. I do have a podcast. It's called Happier Marriage Secrets, and I cover a number of other topics. So if you want to have a convenient way on the go, and just having to listen, if you don't have the time to watch, then the podcast is the way to go. And thirdly, if you want to have a quick way to assess the state of your marriage, you need to take the Happier Marriage Assessment Quiz. And in 90 seconds or so, you can actually take that quiz, get a result, and get a report that explains the results you have just gotten. Now, if you're new to this channel, my full name is Kingsley Grant. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. I've been married for 38 years myself. Just celebrated that recently. My wife and I traveled to Colombia and had a great time. Our first time going was great. And so, we have 2 adult children. So I have some experiences, quite a bit of experience, as you can imagine, both from my marriage as a married man, as a husband, and as a father, but also as a professional. I counseled hundreds and coached hundreds and hundreds of couples over the years. So I've had some experiences, and I'm coming to realize some things after all these many years, how important you as a wife is in this equation. You can become an extraordinary wife. I begin to look at what is missing sometimes from these marriages. What's that one thing that possibly, if I could only help this couple, this relationship with, is to target that wife. Why? She hears. I mean, you know this. You hear. You're more emotionally and relationally centric. You're hearing things, and you have a pulse of the relationship more than we guys as husbands do. You're more up to date. You're more sensitive to that. You are more the initiator of wanting to make sure the marriage and the relationship is what it is. So why wouldn't I want to speak to you? Why wouldn't I want to help you become all that you can become? Why wouldn't I want to help you understand what we, as a husband, as a man, and what maybe your husband is looking for in the relationship. And maybe you're missing some things. And you may not know this unless someone points that out who have your best interests at heart. And that is where I'm coming from. So I want you to hear my heart in what I'm sharing with you. Now, here are 5 ways to become an extraordinary wife. Now, these are not the only ways, but I'm highlighting the more important ones. Number 1, show continuous appreciation to your husband. This means verbally communicating to him that you notice. I cannot tell you how many husbands have said to me that, I just don't feel appreciated in my home. I don't feel like what I've done and what I'm doing in my home is appreciated. And they will say, I think I'm just being taken for granted. And so appreciation is a very big thing. Of course, it's also for you. I'm not going to just deny or minimize the fact that you also want to be appreciated for the work you're doing. And I get that. But here's what happened. There's something about that for us as guys, that when we receive that, it does something that I don't know if it does for you. It may be, but I can tell you from a man's perspective, when we feel appreciated, we want to do more of what we've been doing and even far and above and beyond. So show continuous appreciation. Just don't take for granted the fact that your husband is doing all the things he is doing, providing he's doing those things. I know in some marriages that, unfortunately, that's not the case. And I'm not speaking about those. Those are the exemptions. That is not the rule. That's not the norm. Because your husband should be the one that is the provider and the protector and leading the family. And so if he is doing those things, make sure you're appreciating the work he's putting in fulfilling God's call upon his life. Number 2, this is a big one. Show respect to your husband. This means, listening to him, valuing his opinion, and supporting his dreams. I was talking to someone recently, another man, a husband-to-be really at the time, and he said that, when he was talking to his fiancée about some things about their relationship, I wanted her to know what really is important to him. He said, of all the things that she does, and he said to her, of all the things you do, I want to make sure that you understand that the most important thing for me is to know that I'm respected. So Kingsley, that's kind of, demanding, and it's kind of a misogynist, right? Sometimes I have that problem with that word. Misogynistic in their thinking, or it's a man thing or male dominance. No. That's how we are wired. God wires us to be respected. And that's why he tells you, wife, he said to you, respect your husband. He didn't say for the husband to respect you, even though I understand you need. And I'm not saying there should not be mutual respect, but your wiring is to be loved by your husband. Our wiring is to be respected by our wives. That's how we are wired, and that's why it's so important to us and why it's different than just the actual mutual respect that you experience in a relationship. That is great, and that should be there as well. I have great respect for my wife and for my children. Okay, I have respect in that regard, but the respect that I need is different from that kind of respect. And the love that she needs is one that God has called me as a husband. He said, you need to love your wife as you love yourself. Okay, so, and as Christ loved the church as well. So love, he calls us to do a sacrificial thing as well. So I understand the calling, but your husband needs to be respected in many ways. Show him respect. Don't undermine his leadership. Don't somehow make him feel small or embarrass him, especially before the children. It is really a way to emasculate him and make him feel small. And I can tell you, this doesn't go well in the relationship. Number 3, communicate trust and confidence in your husband. This means sharing your thoughts and feelings with him and let him know how much you trust him that he made the right decision for the family. Now, you said, Kingsley, what if he's not making the right decision? Well, now, of course, there's always exceptions to everything. But I think most times your husband wants to make the best decision for the family. If he's allowed to, number 1. Number 2, if he is supported when he makes those decisions. Okay, so he wants to know that you have a trust in him and you're confident in him to lead, to make decisions for the family. So Kingsley, do I not make decisions as well? Of course, you mutually talk about these things, but ultimately you want him to lead in that regards. Now, I know this may sound a certain way to some women who are basically opposed to this idea, and then that's okay. You can continue to be that way, and you can follow those who are that way. But I can tell you, this is where God wants you to be blessed. When you follow this idea, is what God outlines in the Bible. And I'm not trying to somehow advocate for us men to be, no, I'm trying to call marriages back to what God intended, what the manual says. Is it any wonder there's so much failures in our marital world today? 50% of marriages, the statistics says, have ended in divorce. And 70% of that have been initiated by wives. Now, of course, there are a number of factors and layers, and I understand that. There may be reasons why, but the fact is, that's a fact, that's numbers. We can pull that apart and begin to look at why, but that's the statistics, that's the result, that's the numbers we have to work with, and then begin to look at the layers below that. But that's the raw data. So communicate trust and confidence in your husband. Number 4, be supportive of your husband. This means being there for him when he's going through a tough time, and also celebrate his success. Your husband wants to know you have his back. He wants to know that wherever he's at, whether he is present or not, he has the trust and the confidence that you have his back. So be supportive of him. Be there for him in tough times when things are not going so well. Be there. Let him know that if there's anybody he can count on, it's you. It's you. Now, this number 5 I'm going to give to you right now. Before I give you number 5, and this may be I'm going to deviate from the husband in this number 5, because it's one of the most important one I want to also share with you. Number 1, as I mentioned, show continuous appreciation for your husband. Number 2, show respect to your husband. Number 3, communicate trust and confidence in your husband. Number 4, be supportive of your husband. And here is number 5. Ready? Take care of yourself. Make sure you practice self-care. If there's ever a time that you need a self-care, is when you are becoming an extraordinary wife. As often as possible, you want to pursue the things that make you happy, because you have to have a balance, because when you're giving so much, you've got to find something to take in. Now, your husband is going to reciprocate when he experiences things coming from you, but you also have to pursue your own happiness. You have to do the things that are important to you. In the meantime, it's where I think about in a relationship, I see there's two things working at the same time. There's an independent path and an interdependent path, right? Where you're going out and in, and the marriage is growing and you're growing, and parallel as you grow, the marriage is growing, you grow, the marriage is. This is the best way to have a very awesome marriage, wouldn't you say? So take care of yourself. Make sure that you don't lose who you are. Make sure that you remain true to yourself. When I say true to yourself, meaning that you hold certain convictions, certain things you know is right according to God's word, and you don't violate those things. And make sure you also find time, me time away from everyone, the children and your husband, just to be able to have that intake so you can get refreshed and re-energized and come back and make deposit in your relationship. Now, I hope this video and this podcast, as you're listening for the podcast, has convinced you to become an extraordinary wife. Now, I know it's not easy, right? It's simple. It's not easy, but it's worth it. When you're extraordinary, when you're an extraordinary wife, you make your husband happier, you're married stronger, and yourself a better person. Now, if you're ready to get started on this whole idea of becoming an extraordinary wife, I want to encourage you to take some action today. Here are a few ideas. Talk to your husband about what it means to be an extraordinary wife. If you became one, what would you could say to him, if I became one, what are some things you would like to see that I'm doing that you would regard as extraordinary? Number 2, read books or articles about marriages and relationships. Of course, follow this video, this channel, and listen to the podcast. Okay, talk to other wives who are striving themselves to be extraordinary. Be careful you don't speak to the wrong people. Only those who are striving to be extraordinary according to the Word of God. And set some goals for yourself about what you want to achieve as an extraordinary wife, and bring someone in as an accountability partner. That way, it can help you to become that person that God intends. Now, I hope this was very helpful to you. I hope it was, and I would love to hear if it was. I want to make, I'd love to hear your comments either way. Okay, this is very important. I'd love to hear your comments either way. So if you're watching this video, so somebody listen to the podcast, I want you to make a comment and if you're even listening to the podcast, you can come over to the channel at Kingsley Grant and just make a comment. Let me hear your thoughts on what you, about this video, about what you've heard today. And I'd love to also, the links I mentioned today about the podcast and the quiz will be in the description below. It's also in the podcast description as well. So you'll be able to access those as quickly as you need them. They'll be always available to you. Okay, so I want to encourage you to really focus on the things that I talked about today. And with God's help, I believe you can become all that you need to become, right? I know you probably also know this as well, right? So with that said, my friend, I want to say thank you for taking the time to watch and to listen to this topic about becoming an extraordinary wife. So until next time, peace out. God bless. And I see you here at the video on the next broadcast of this channel. Make sure you share it and stay extraordinary. And the podcast, make sure you share that as well with another spouse. And the podcast has an end. And so for now, the podcast will be able to have the announcer will say more things on the podcast. And for you here at the video, thank you for watching. God bless. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and make this show go viral. Thank you so very much. God bless you.
We've come to the end of another exciting show. And if you enjoyed this podcast, 1, make sure you give this show a rating and review. 2, subscribe to the show to get all new releases. And 3, get your complimentary copy of the 5 Secrets to a Happier Marriage ebook at kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. Again, it's kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. See the link in the show notes. Do it today. Don't delay. Thanks so much for listening, and make sure you tell one other spouse about this show, or better yet, share it with them. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May he turn his face toward you and give you his peace, both now and forever.